All right, all right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Coach Horace. I'm with VA Claims Insider, of course, and my experience, I'm a 100% connected veteran, and part of that 100% is somatic symptom disorder. So we'll do a little bit of talking about that today, and I'll let Coach Adam go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Horace. I'm Coach Adam
Yes.
Castro. I have a master's and doctorate in social work. That's why I have Coach Dr. Adam Castro in there. However, not doing any type of clinical type stuff in this setting. I am a coach, but
Thank
that's
goodness.
my disclaimer. We're not doing therapy on this side of the fence. If you catch me in a different setting, then maybe it might be different. But we're just making referrals on this side. We're making referrals.
I was about to say, you got the wrong guy on the other end then if we gonna get clinical about it. Hold on, let me get my self-medicating stuff.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, so we're going to talk about PTSD and somatic symptom disorder. Somatic symptom disorder is a very popular secondary claim.
Yeah.
Isn't that right? Secondary.
Yeah, I'm actually connected secondary to my back condition. I had gotten myself to 70% after 5 years, and talked to a coach here at VACI. He mentioned somatic something that I'd never heard of before. But he ran down the symptoms, and it was me in my life. And so we filed, and I guess I'm pretty screwed up. I ended up getting 100% for somatic symptom disorder. So even if I was at zero, I would have went from 0 to 100% just on somatic symptom disorder. So obviously it put me at 100% permanent and total. So, you know, I can talk a little bit about somatic symptom disorder. I've done a little research, but I can't talk the medical talk. I can talk from personal experience, though.
And that goes a long way, too. Right? That does go a long way because it's our personal experience, the things that we've been through, and what we know that does work and what hasn't worked, and us as coaches also dealing with other unique situations and scenarios, because everybody's situation can be a little bit different and the approach could be different, right? And so
right, yeah.
You have to tease that stuff out. And it sounds like you had a really good coach walk you through the process.
Yeah, the symptoms were just there, and we train you here to speak to your symptoms. And he actually laid out what the symptoms were, and I was like, check. They were all me. So one of the symptoms, and it's even on my IMO, is somatic symptom disorder, primarily pain. And some of my notes I have here is defined somatic symptom disorder, or you may hear us coaches say SSD, as having physical symptoms, a disorder having physical symptoms that can't be explained by any known physical or mental condition. And that's a little weird to me because, I had 4 back surgeries. I think that explains it, but it got to the point where I guess this is one example that I gave that rung big with my examiner was everybody here knows I love live music, period. And I like going to concerts. 2020 really messed me up on that, but it got to the point where if a favorite group of mine was appearing at American Airlines Center here or the Verizon Theater or one of the other theaters, I go to enough of them to know where the parking is. And I had to judge how, this was before I had a handicap tag on my car. But I go to enough events where I know how far I would have to walk with the parking situation. And on any given time when I was having a bad time, which was every day, if I knew I had to walk too far, I just had to pass on that concert, and that would really mess me up, because not only could I not walk from the parking lot, but obviously I couldn't do stuff around the house. I couldn't be intimate with my wife. I couldn't do a lot of things, that required being physical in any way. So yeah, I thought about my pain a lot. It pretty much dominated my life, and I'm 100% connected, but that doesn't mean that it cured it. I still live with it every day and still have some of the same symptoms. 4 back surgeries has went a long way to helping me out with a lot of that. I can now walk a little bit, some distance, but before that, man, I was a wreck. I was, you go from being this warrior in our profession, being military and everything, to, I'm hoping a 2-year-old baby don't hit me in the back because I'm down. So, that's just part of my story and part of my experience with somatic symptoms. And of course, it caused some other symptoms that cognitive symptoms, they're called: worry, anxiety. I had to get to the realization that something happened here in the house. I can't defend my household. I can't defend my wife, and this is another thing for all you veterans out there. After I got to 100%, I got 2 weapons in my house. So if you're worried about weapons and being 100%, don't. They did a background check on me. Somatic symptom disorder didn't come up. Neither the fact that I was 100% connected veteran, that didn't come up. So no, don't worry about that. I know a lot of guys have questions about that. But that's enough of me talking. Let's let the doctor tell us a little bit more about it.
Coach doctor, non-clinical.
Coach doctor, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Horace. Thanks for being vulnerable. Thank you for speaking your truth, telling your story. Because, knowledge is power. And if we have the knowledge, then we should share it too.
Yeah.
We can't just, people don't know what they don't know. And so this is an amazing platform to reach the masses of veterans as far as we can reach, and be available to them. So I thank you for that. And when you were sharing your story, I kept thinking lifestyle. His lifestyle was impacted.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why we call it the lifestyle impact claim, right? Nicknamed the lifestyle impact claim.
Right.
We're like, okay, your neck is service connected. You got tinnitus. You got your back is service connected. And you're like, oh, what does it do to you? Man, I feel tired. I'm struggling with motivation. I'm depressed. I can't sleep well. It just hurts to lay down in bed.
Yeah.
Right. And then so you're like, somatic symptom disorder.
That lifestyle impact is more than just the title. It's a real thing. When you love your friends, but you can only be around them for so long, or the summer is kicking off, barbecues and stuff like that. Right now, even now, I have a time limit to where I'm fun and social and everything. And then there comes a point where the transition happens, where I go sit on the couch somewhere and sort of sit off to myself. So yeah, that lifestyle impact thing, it's huge with SSD and PTSD.
Right. Right. And I definitely see it as an opportunity for folks who maybe didn't go to the combat zone, who maybe don't merit the diagnosis for PTSD.
Right.
Or feel like that, well, I didn't really do too much, or I didn't deploy here, and so I don't know if I can get PTSD. And then so sometimes it's appropriate to just, if they're starting from scratch, just put some points on the board. Put something.
Yeah. I served from 82 to 86, between Vietnam and the first Gulf War. It was peacetime. So I can't speak to PTSD from experience other than regular life. The most traumatic thing ever happened to me was losing my mom in 94, which is something I still deal with. But of course, that's not military related. However, the symptoms that arose out of that originated in the military, as far as how my mind works and all of that, and how I process things, it very much aggravated those symptoms. I'm more anxious now. I used to worry more, but I'm 56. I've gotten to the point where it is what it is. Whatever happens, people around here say I'm low key and all of that. It's just I've learned over the years that there are things that we can control and there are things that we can't control. However, that doesn't mean that things that have happened to you, especially in the military, that you don't deserve to be compensated for, because it's been 40 years since I've got out of the service almost, and these things still affect my life every single day. Every day. I mean, I have back pain right now as we speak. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think, Adam, that brings us to speaking to your symptoms, because our symptoms become us. Basically, we've learned to live with it and deal with it in the way that we do. So it's like an everyday, hey man, my back hurt. Yeah, so what? I still got to go feed the dog and take care of the yard, and as best as I can anyway, and take care of my house. What? I mean, nothing is wrong with me. I got this, but I'm functioning somewhat.
It's the new norm.
Yeah. So
norm.
what's your thoughts on that?
I'm thinking, hey, I'm with you, right? The military culture, and you've been living with it for so long.
Right.
It's the new norm, right?
Yeah.
Or and it just became normal for that, and didn't really step back to look at it, maybe from a clinical stance or medical stance, or a stance from the CFR. Right. until we come across somebody who can point us in the right direction, which happened with you, thankfully.
Yeah.
And I can't, and also you brought up like the whole fact, well, maybe I don't deserve it. Right. There's a lot of folks in the military veteran community that deal with survivor's guilt, and they have guilt maybe associated with the disability stuff. And maybe they might think in terms of that it's maybe a hush money, like here, you went through this, and here, take your money and go over there.
Yeah.
Thanks for your service, or thanks for your I like to use the term sacrifice, but thank you for your service. Now go over there, right? Yeah. Let the VA deal with you. Get the VA disability stuff and go over there. Now, not to get all clinical, right? But back when I was doing clinical work for the VA,
I knew we would get here.
way back when I left in October, so that came over here. I dealt with a number of veterans that would come up with, concerns about the disability process, had a lot of guilt about it, wasn't sure whether they wanted to do it or not to do it. There was other driving factors too that influence us as well, like maybe our families or their spouses are like, hey, go get that. Maybe the veteran's not fully vested into it either.
Right.
But one thing I would tell a number of our vets is that you don't want to wait for something bad to happen, or for something too bad to be true to happen. It can happen. Like if you have a stroke and you can't articulate yourself,
right,
how are you going to present your symptoms?
Yeah.
When you get to that mental health provider that's going to document it, Telemedica, our referral source, right? Or whoever that mental health professional is, or a C&P examiner, how would you be able to articulate what's going on with you?
Yeah.
You don't want to wait for that to happen.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm dealing with a few, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm dealing with a few Vietnam veterans where some dementia is now setting in, and it's hard for them to articulate, any type of symptoms. It's hard to just have a conversation. So that's a great point on your part.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, it's sad. And if you're able to do it and don't have and I know we all have these fear factors about us, like, oh, about this career thing. You brought up the gun stuff, and and I did 5 years as a mental health employee for the VA. I never had a veteran get their gun taken away from them.
Yeah.
And I had a high client load. My facility was like number 10 if in terms of output and production out of over 300 sites in the nation.
Wow.
So all the counselors had like over 100 vets on their caseload. And I never had any of my vets get their gun taken away. And 90% of the time, it was, they were seeking service-connected disability. They were going to leverage that documentation for that purpose. And there was no issue with that based on that particular VA setting. Now, the VA hospital setting is a totally different issue.
Yeah.
But vet centers are a little bit different. So they fall under regional counseling services, and VA hospital is the larger system, which is restricted to scope of practice. So it might be a little bit difficult to go to the VA hospital and be like, I feel like I have somatic symptom disorder.
Yeah.
They might look at you cross-eyed and say, well, I'll be, they might say, hey, well, I will be the determining factor for that. We will see about that. Because technically, they don't have to speak to your claim, period. They're not allowed to. They're restricted to scope of practice. So whatever the VA healthcare system hired them to do, that's what they are to do and nothing else. Because the VA disability stuff is actually considered kind of like a workman's comp legal claim. You're suing Uncle Sam, basically. That's why the VA disability process can be so complicated for some. Right. And there's so much pushback is because it's taxpayer money.
Yeah.
They have to be beholden to the taxpayer. So that's why are the I's dotted and the T's crossed. Yeah. And that's why they get pushback, and they know they get stuff wrong. That's why we always have recourse. Yeah. And Horace, I hope it didn't take you 10 years to get 100%. I hope it only took like 6 months, maybe, but because I know some people really go through it,
Well, it's funny. It took 60 months for me to get to 70% and 60 days to get to 100% using the strategies in VA Claims Insider. So a huge difference on that. But I have a question for you, because somatic symptom disorder is complicated. It's tricky and everything. What I guess among the mental health community of professionals like yourself.
Did I come from? Because I'm a coach now.
That you come from. Okay. How proficient are they in their knowledge of understanding somatic symptom disorder?
Wow. You know what? That can vary. That could vary depending on how many years that professional has been in the field, where they went to school, what their area of focus was. Was it clinical or was it just more like advocating and looking at looking at things from like a macro lens, looking at community resources and all that advocacy type stuff. But so I'd say like everybody's experience varies. Like when I was getting my MSW, I went the military mental health track. So I went the military specialization. and I did the mental health track, which was the more clinical stuff, like the DSM-5, basically the mental health Bible. It's like this thick, and right. You may have heard it. Don't really know. You don't need to know what it is, but it's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm gonna tell you what. Probably a lot of mental health providers that don't know that book by heart. They're probably gonna go flip to it. They have little tabs in there. They have their go-tos. When I was a mental health counselor for the VA, I only had like a few go-tos.
Okay.
Our protocol was to screen for PTSD first. So if it looked like PTSD, boom, that's where I was going. That's vet center SOP policy, basically. That was my systems policy, SOP. And I think the VA hospital is like pretty much there too, like screen for that and then maybe rule out and go some other routes with it too. But so if I couldn't catch them with PTSD, like, hey, like, do you have anxiety? Yeah. All right. Here's a generalized anxiety disorder scale. Fill this out. So it's like, boom. All right. And then maybe depression, PHQ-9. It's like, okay, can't get you that. Got you with this one. So there's like, like a few of them that they would go to, or you try to speak to the symptoms as best you could, right? In the clinical notes. But yeah, so in my previous clinical setting, most of the time folks were getting diagnosed with PTSD because all the clients were combat vets, or military sexual trauma. Those are the only ones that meet that criteria for that system. Everyone else had to get their services from the VA hospital. So like if you're peacetime, non-combat, non-MST, then it's like, okay, you're going to your VA hospital client then. So a vet center was for a specific group. Vet center was established for the Vietnam community, actually. That was in a response to the Vietnam conflict.
Wow.
That's how they came into play. So there were some awesome Vietnam vets out there that were really advocating for the military and veteran community after, like shortly after the conflict, and then pushed the VA and Congress to go, hey, you guys need to do more on the mental health side. And that's how got the vet centers.
Man, that's great. Heroes in a whole different way.
Yeah.
Because we believe that every veteran has some degree of a mental health disability, whether that's 10%, even 0%. And that 0% represents service connected, which you can build on that, and it makes it easier for the other claims to have a favorable result and everything. So that's huge. I commend those guys, and I'm a direct beneficiary of it, even though it's somatic symptom disorder, but still the mental health end of things of veterans it's just huge. We're losing 22 a day, of veterans that's deciding to take their own life because they feel like help is not there. And above all else, compensation, everything else, over and above all of that, taking care of yourself is the main thing, getting some help. And I'm so happy that the VA has taken the steps that it's taken to address these mental health issues. Because, a lot of times here in the Dallas area, I pass by a homeless camp. I know a lot of those people are veterans. I know they are, and they just had a hard time adjusting once they came back. And we owe veterans at least the opportunity to get well. The country put them in that situation. It's only right that they're offered the opportunity to get well, from seeing the things that they've seen or doing the things that veterans do every day for this country. So
yeah, you bring up a good point, the suicide ratio, and there are vets that do fall through the cracks, the homelessness, which is why I'm also thankful that there are additional resources that do exist. One of them being this, what we have here, because we're in addition to, we're a supplement to what currently exists. And with what's with what's going on, unfortunately, it just seems like we're never keeping up enough, and that's that's just how the trends are kind of going, unfortunately, until we can turn the ship in the right direction, But we're slowly getting there, but it's a process.
I think for so long, mental health was kind of pushed to the side and maybe even ignored in this country, that now that treatment is becoming available, there's just 1 billion people that are sick. So you got to wade through all of that first before you can get on the top side of things. So, it's just something that we just need to keep advocating for and pushing for. So Adam, we've talked a lot about somatic symptom disorder, my experience, and some of your former life clinical parts of things. What about PTSD? It's huge with veterans.
Yeah. So we touched on somatic symptom disorder, right? And that's a popular secondary claim. Mm-hmm. But PTSD, you'd be looking at a primary claim.
Yes.
And so the main thing that a veteran has to have experienced is a trauma. Mm-hmm. Number one, to even merit the diagnosis for PTSD, you have to have a traumatic event. And then, of course, have somebody who's credible in that space document that event, that happened to you in service. By the way, if you're documenting a traumatic event that happened in service, that if the provider's doing that for you, mm-hmm. then that's also what's helping make it stick, that the military caused or made something worse. If the military caused or made something worse, then that's what helps these VA disabilities stick. So if you have that trauma that's documented, that, okay, you were here, you had this MOS, you were deployed, to this combat zone, you were deployed XYZ amount of times, and then you have like a number of traumas that were documented on your behalf by that mental health provider, then there it is. But to include the symptoms, of course, like you have to get screened for it, just like you have to get screened for somatic symptom disorder to make, okay, do you have these symptoms? And then you have certain symptoms associated with PTSD as well. So if they have those, they're experiencing all those, reactive type symptoms associated with PTSD, and that's all checked off, and they meet the criteria along with the traumatic event, there you go. So that really is the nexus in itself, is the event and the symptoms that occur, that's documented, right? But if you're going secondary, it's like, okay, you have to have the symptoms and then tie in the symptoms to that other service-connected disability that impacts that person's life. Right. So those are kind of the two differences.
That's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I've also come across a lot of veterans that they're reaching, and that's okay, rightfully so. They're reaching for information like, oh, I need this PTSD, but I don't know if I merit PTSD. I'm like, well, hold on, let's talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about that, because you may not need a diagnosis for PTSD, and some folks think that, oh, the PTSD is its own rating scale, basically.
Yeah.
But they're the same. Mental health rating scale is the same.
Mental health is mental health.
Mental health is mental health, right? Rated, same CFR, same range of severity. The way I used to break it down, the most that was most helpful to help others, help me explain it to others. Mild on the mental health severity range was 0 to 30, moderate 50 to 70, severe 70 to 100. Regardless, PTSD, somatic symptom disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, they're going to be rated the same.
Yeah. And that's a great point. There's this umbrella of mental health, and then there's these conditions that fall under that: PTSD, somatic symptom disorder, major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, all of these things. So if you feel like you're reaching for PTSD, one reason we say here, just speak to your symptoms and leave it up to the professional to make that diagnosis. Now, if you know you have a specific trauma, that's one thing. even still, speak to that. If anytime you're talking to an examiner or a psychologist or a therapist or something like that, speak to your symptoms. That's the most important thing you can do, because you may be thinking you have PTSD, but you have somatic symptom disorder, or you may have major depressive disorder, or you may have a combination of them, like me, somatic symptom disorder and major depressive disorder. You don't know,
Right.
And even if you are a medical professional, the lens that we see ourselves through and the lens that someone else will see us through is totally different. You mentioned our loved ones pushing us. My wife was the one who pushed me, saying, "Hey, you need to go to the VA and see about getting some compensation. If you can apply for disability." I'm fine. I didn't go to war. Leave it for those guys. I have so much respect for those guys. Go to them, or the people that women and men that have had military sexual trauma or something. They deserve it more than me. My 4 years, I did my 4 years and I got out. I'm good. Well, again, she's seeing it through her lens and how I isolate, and knowing what type of social person I am. How she saw how much pain I was in, and things like that. So finally, I took her serious and just kind of filed, not knowing what I was doing. And then I had that first back surgery, then the second. Then I kind of caught fire in my efforts to get disability at that time. So a lot of times it'll take someone else outside of ourselves. But then, if you've been in a traumatic situation, you have a claim waiting. But again, don't diagnose yourself. Don't self-diagnose. Just whether it's the psych eval that we partner with the company for, or that CMP examiner, you just make sure you speak to your symptoms, because that's going to tell the tale of what you're ultimately giving compensation for.
Right. And then another thing I'm glad you touched on military sexual trauma, because that is a traumatic event. That is a traumatic event, trauma. So as long as that gets documented, then there you go. As long as a lot of folks don't have that. I know a lot of the folks that did experience MST don't have any formal documentation from military service.
Right.
Just because maybe the military didn't, policy wise, didn't handle that stuff very well, or there was concerns of, possible reprimand that they could face, for sounding a complaint. And so a lot of times they end up dealing with it after the fact, or reporting it after the fact. And that's okay. Even if it's after the fact, as long as the provider, whoever's, whatever credible mental health person is documenting, as long as it's like, hey, this happened in service, and then this is where I'm at today. This is, these are symptoms I experienced after the event. Maybe they're getting worse too, possibly.
Yeah.
Bring it forward.
I've spoke to a lot of females, especially where, the person that was violating them were of a higher rank, and they were concerned about repercussions for reporting it. And they just didn't. And now we're 10, 15, 20 years down the road. You're having intimacy problems, female sexual arousal. You're irritable. You have nightmares. You're an introvert. Things like that. And it didn't manifest until some years after your time in service. That's totally, totally fine. If it, of course, you wouldn't report it when you were in service, because it could have ended your career, just like any mental health condition. I couldn't go to sick call and say, hey, I'm depressed. Hey, doc, I'm this, I'm that. well, okay.
And risk your career too.
I'm the guy that's going to put you out of service. that would be the answer.
They called. It was funny because when I was working on my MSW, that master's degree in social work, in the military class, one of the professors was former military psychologist and then became a contractor for the military base and did psychology, counseling work for the base. But she said that they were, I think she got out as what did she get as? Probably lieutenant commander or commander. But because I don't think she only stuck around, I think 4 or 8 years in the military as an officer. So, but she said that they were called the Wizard. They're nicknamed the Wizard. Like, you can go see the Wizard because the Wizard can make you disappear.
Oh wow!
Like you go see that mental health person. Like, hey, you're not fit for duty. You guys, we're sending you back to the rear.
Wow! Wow!
I was like, wow, that's an interesting way of looking at it, man.
I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, but so it's different though. Like in the military, when it comes to military mental health, I know that we're freaking out about stigma and being vulnerable in the military, and because the military all this uniformity and resilience and strength, and so therefore you don't show signs of weakness. And this is kind of the opposite. And so that mentality is helpful for the military. That's about it.
That's it.
That's about it.
That's it.
Hey, kudos to the military. they did it pretty good.
That is it.
They made it very difficult for us to be vulnerable.
Yep.
And so this whole process is exactly the opposite of what we were taught in the military. Yeah. It's very challenging, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that opposite effect. I mean, the first battle you have to face is looking yourself in the mirror and realizing you're not Superman or Superwoman. You got problems, and it takes a realization to come to that. I mean, how many of us will try and do a bunch of things and we know we're hurting? My back hurts, yet I'm still gonna pick up this truck. And go ahead, let's fix the tire. Oh, the jack is broke. I'll lift it up and you change the tire. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? Is we have to look ourselves in the mirror and be honest with ourselves first that we're not Superman or Superwoman anymore. We're wounded. We're broken down in my case. We're, and it takes some humility. It takes some just, transparency on your part. I had gotten to the point the depression was so bad, I would go a week or more without even looking at myself in the mirror because I didn't want to look at the man in the mirror. I didn't want to see those sad eyes and slumped over expression. And, I wouldn't take a shower for a week until my wife threw me in the shower. Basically,
the downside of retirement. The downside of retirement is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. It wasn't the rosy,
It's not the golden years. I thought
it wasn't golden at all. Golden as in somebody peeing on me or something. I don't know, but it was. But
yeah,
even with that being.
You mentioned, man. Thank you, bro. You mentioned, like not being honest with yourself, right? And not admitting to certain limitations. And it sounds like denial, right?
Yeah,
Deny. Bury. Keep it buried deep. Keep it locked up tight, and just try to do the best you can with it, right? But and also denial stands for don't even know I am lying to myself.
Wow.
And I don't even know I am lying.
Wow. Hadn't heard that before
I
either.
picked that up from somewhere else. Back in my clinical days. So.
You're dropping some nuggets today, boy.
I have some good teachers. What can I say? I'm clever, but I'm not that clever. I'm not the one who created that one.
Pastors say, I give the other person credit 3 times. After that, it's mine.
Oh, there you go. Right on. I'll have to ask him if it's okay if I can borrow it. These, especially the Vietnam community, just wow. A lot of them, they suffered the rejection early on too.
Yeah.
Not just the VA, but the community, society, experienced their traumas from their military service. We're told all the things that don't worry about it, the VA is going to take care of it, and then we're greeted with a different response, basically.
Exactly.
And some of that is, let's say, again, going back to scope of practice, VA hospital, not being able to know or speak to disability stuff, because also not only does disability percentage get you monetary compensation, there is something else related to that service-connected disability, state, federal, and medical benefits, right?
Yes.
A lot of times there's just the Vietnam veteran would go in there and say, I want to enroll in healthcare, and they're like, no. That's pretty much what they're told. But really, if they were explained or had it elaborated to them, or had that person they came across known what other eligibility criteria they could fall in, had they gone after the VA disability compensation, that might have been a different conversation at that time when they experienced that rejection.
Right. Speaking on that, commercial time, throwing a shameless plug for our founder and CEO, Brian Reese, has written a great book, You Deserve It. And it goes through those federal and state benefits that you're entitled to, that you are entitled to. Let me say that again. You're entitled to these benefits. So I would encourage everybody to download it. I think it's like 99 cents, or I like books. So get the book for like $16 or whatever it is. But it's also so worth it to explore what your benefits are. And if that's what it takes to, like my wife was the fire under me, maybe it's the fact that your property taxes can be dismissed, or whatever motivates you to start your process. That's a good guide to just look at what's available to you and really what's yours as a veteran. So those Vietnam veterans that came back and was spat on and cussed out after being in combat, now's your time, if you haven't already, to start getting what you deserve, what you rightfully deserve. And of course, not just the Vietnam veterans, the peacetime vets like myself, the Iraqi and Afghanistan vets, and those that are getting ready to get out here momentarily. There's benefits available. Whether you're suffering from a mental condition such as somatic symptom disorder or PTSD or major depressive disorder, anxiety, whatever, even something as simple as tinnitus, man, get your benefits. That's what the old heads used to tell me when I would go to the VA, and they found out, because you're there forever and you start talking to every stranger around you. Well, not stranger, but military brother or sister. And they used to get mad at me because, what? You haven't gotten your benefit yet? I'm like, no.
They give you a hard time, huh?
Yeah, they would kind of set me straight, man. Like, okay. And the funny part about it is I I sent off my military records like in 2003. I didn't file my first claim until 2013. So I got my records, but I didn't take any action on it, you know. So maybe I left money on the table. I don't know, but
I think you did. I think you did.
I try not to think about it like that.
I think you did. I think you did. I know the claims process was much slower, probably back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first got out, I got out end of 2010, and I was told, expect a year and a half, 2 years on the claim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I'm seeing, well, especially if we, of course, the more more issues you put on one claim that you're claiming, the longer it's going to take.
The longer it's going to take.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that, as far as the strategy is concerned, that you should do and how you should handle it. And that's also where we come into play too, is how to structure the claim. What's the best strategy?
Right.
What do they need? What have they tried before? And where do we fit in? Right. So that's really the value with VA Claims Insider, the coaches, not just the individual coaching that folks will get, but there's also a team of us. They run classes, right, Horace? Because you and I have done that stuff a number of times, and they just on and on and on, right? Yeah. It's continuous, right? So they have an opportunity to take advantage of those resources as well. And we have a online portal when they become members, right, that they can use for resources. Definitely helpful tools in there, along with the work that they can do with their coach. So whether it's mental health or something else, we could definitely address those concerns and speak to the needs of the veteran and concerns. So
and when you and I first filed our claims, there was no VACI. So maybe that was the reason it took me so long. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't even know where to start with this. Well, if you're looking at this video or any of our other videos or our Facebook lives, or you're on one of our live classes or whatever, you no longer have that excuse. Yeah, I may have left money on the table, but it was ignorance. I just didn't know what to do. Well, that's not an excuse anymore. And there's no reason for anybody to be leaving money on the table, waiting until 2035 to file their claim. You get going on your claim today, because I don't know about you, Adam. I've had somebody go from 0 to 70% 24 hours after their C&P exam. They checked their benefits the next day, and they were at 70% after the C&P. Now, it took them a couple of weeks after filing the claim, then had their C&P, but still within total time, 20 days, their service connected.
The fastest I've seen, probably 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah, from beginning to end. That's the fastest I've seen.
And the president of our company, T. Morrell, he holds the record. I believe it's like 4 hours, which is insane.
Which means there was no time for C&P exam, and they just approved it.
No. Oh, speaking of that, most times you will have a C&P exam, but sometimes you'll have what's called an ACE exam, where you submitted a fully developed claim, the right person got it, and they ruled on it right then. No C&P or anything. That's called an ACE exam. Now, that's not typical of what happens, but it does happen every once in a while. So, that's
like
also another reason.
Like 1% of the time.
Yeah. Hey. A clock is right 2 times a day, right? A broken clock is right twice a day. So
yeah. If you get lucky, you can get that type of situation. But 9 times at least 9 times out of 10, plan on the C&P exam. Just plan on it.
And we're going to make sure that that you're prepared for it and everything. So that's the advantage of getting a coach and aligning yourself with VACI and all of the experience that we have here. So I really don't have anything else, Adam.
That being said, man,
Coach Adam, almost said Doc.
Thanks, my man. But no, it's been fun. It's been amazing rapping with you today. Appreciate you taking the time. I hope that we were able to bring value to our company and to our audience of viewers who are watching, who will see this clip. So yeah, keep doing what you do, Coach Horace, and keep changing lives for the better.
Hey, you the same, man. All right, everybody. Take care. Thank you.